Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fools Seldom Differ podcast. This one's a bit different because today I'm interviewing the wonderful, the magnificent member for Wide Bay, Llew O'Brien, loving husband, loving father, former cop. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
And the check's in the mail for that introduction, mate.
You're good. I got paid very well for that, everybody. he paid me a brown paper bag. Make sure he looks good. Yeah.
Thanks, mate. It's great to be here. It's great to be part of your new venture with Lily, the podcast. That's fantastic. It's good to see you're doing something that's no doubt going to educate a lot of people on a lot of different things and entertain them at the same time. So that's good, mate.
It's something I've wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah.
The podcast. A lot of people always said, "Oh, do a podcast. Your voice is perfect for radio."
Yeah, yeah.
And your face is too.
Yeah.
But people have said that a fair bit for a while now. Do a podcast, and I finally pulled my finger out. And Lily's been a great help with all the editing and being here with me.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do it by myself.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm glad that you're my first.
No, I think you'll do well. You've got that flair and you've got that ability to really capture the audience. You've done that in other areas, and I think you're going to do really, really well. And Lily's obviously the technical brains behind it. So that's, as you've already admitted to me, so it'll succeed.
We paid Llew off as well. So Llew got a brown paper bag too. So we paid each other off to make each other sound good.
I might take my glasses off. Yeah. I feel like an old man.
Tell me about it.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, seriously, a lot of people always think I'm older than I am.
Yeah.
I think it's the height, it's the way I speak, and the glasses.
Yeah.
I think the glasses. Because look, 10 years younger, man.
Where did Andy go?
Yeah, who's this guy?
Yeah,
If I shave my hair off,
no
glasses, dressed differently, could travel incognito.
Yeah.
Looks like.
Well, you look a lot different to the first time I saw you back in the day when you were starting your TikTok stuff, and it was when the dollar milk stuff was on, I think, and you look different to then. To me, you do. Maybe I'm just more familiar with you.
I'm probably about at least 15 kilograms heavier. More wrinkles, grey starting. Yeah. Oh, I filled out all right. I've been in the good paddock for a while. But anyway, we'll start talking about Llew. Today we're going to talk to Llew about before politics, during politics, and then how democracy actually functions in Australia. So, Llew, where were you born, and what was your upbringing like?
Yeah. Well, this is a bit of something I keep secret. I'm a New South Welshman. I know. I just lost half my votes there. I was born in Mona Vale in Sydney, on the northern beaches of Sydney, in the Mona Vale Hospital. So my family, my mum's side of the original Llew, my mum's dad, Llewellyn, was a Welshman, and he immigrated. He actually left Wales, Swansea, when he was about 14. Jumped on a merchant ship, and became a merchant seaman and sailed around the world for some time. 15 odd years, I think it was. In doing that, and then landed in Sydney and started a tobacconist shop in the Rocks, which is right in the centre of Circular Quay. So my mum was born in the middle of the city in Sydney and grew up in Circular Quay. And
at what time? When would that have been?
So mum was born in 35.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So just before the war.
Before the war. So Llew, my granddad, who I didn't unfortunately get to meet, he would have been sailing around as a young fella when World War I was on. And then settled in Australia and met his wife, who was from New Caledonia, and they bought a little place out in what they called the country, which was Mona Vale, back in the 30s, and now Mona Vale is part of the Northern Beaches. It's a
suburbia.
And it's it's an area that's pretty well off socioeconomically.
Was it at the time that they moved there though?
Oh, when they bought it, it was like buying out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I think they bought about 10 acres or something. If you own 10 acres on the Northern Beaches now, you'd be a gazillionaire. but yeah, so they inherited my mum inherited the house when Lou passed away, and I grew up. I was born in Mona Vale, grew up in Mona Vale until I was 15, and was a mad keen golfer. That was what I wanted to do.
Yep.
I love golf. Like back in the 80s, that's all I did. I'd wake up and go and hit balls in the morning, and I wanted to be a pro.
Do you still
golfer.
play?
Not really. I do, but very poorly.
You dabble?
Yeah, I dabble. I like the thought of it, but there's just no time. And,
Yeah.
I'd like to play. I played when I was up here for a while, but yeah. So the reason we left Sydney was because my mum got ill, and she was dying of motor neurone disease. So we moved away from the hustle and bustle of the city to Gympie. We actually came up in the early 80s for a period. I'm not even sure why. We moved up for about 18 months in 1980.
Right.
It's funny, I was talking to someone about this yesterday. When I was in Sydney, my mum was a very forward-thinking lady. She's an amazing person. And back in the 70s, Japan was booming. Japan and the economy and our trade with Japan was really taking off, and there were a lot of Japanese businesses and business people coming to Australia. So in Sydney, they started a Japanese school in a suburb called Terry Hills, which was sort of out in the bush a little bit up from the northern beaches. And the Japanese school was a place where all the kids from Japan went to school, and I think pretty much continued on the Japanese curriculum there, because I think a lot of them weren't staying. Some were, but at that school they had like one or two international classes. So Aussie kids went to those international classes, but were also immersed in the Japanese culture, which is what happened to me when I was in grade 2. Mums thought that'd be a good thing for Lou to learn about this different culture, very different culture, and our trade ties were strong and our relationship was strong, and she saw that as something. So she sent me to this Japanese school, which I went to for a couple of years. And then in 1980, I think it was 80, I went from the Sydney Japanese School to Gympie West.
Yeah, right.
Which was that was good. It was different.
Incredibly.
Yeah, yeah. I was that kid that I came from Sydney, but I came from this Japanese school. I remember we used to do a lot of, but we learnt origami. I mean, that's part of the Japanese culture. So making things out of origami was fun. And
is it something you can still do?
I don't know.
You haven't
but I
tested
taught
that?
all the kids to make a paper crane in grade 4 at the Gympie West. I don't know. I'll have a crack at it sometime. now that you've said that, I haven't made one for decades. But
we'll crack the paper out.
Crack
and
the
see how
paper
you go.
out. Yeah. So that's ended up coming up in 1988.
Yep.
We moved up, and
So
I
you
left
came here in
school.
1980 to Gympie.
Yeah, then we moved back.
To Sydney.
Yeah. So we came up, bought a place just outside of Gympie in a rural area, and for one reason or another, I think it was business related as well.
Yep.
We ended up heading back because my parents ran a business, and we went back to Mona Vale in about we were only up here for 18 odd months.
Yep.
So then the early 80s, and then Mum got sick. So the motor neurone disease came on over a period of time. She started to lose movement, and then there was a period.
Did she know for a long time that she had it, or was it very sudden?
So it was something we didn't know what it was. Her speech she started to slur her speech with the sort of the type of motor neurone disease that Mum had. She started to lose memory as well. I don't know how common that is, but it was an extremely aggressive form. And so the first signs were just not being able to lift her arm up and a bit of slurred speech. And my father noticed that there were a few things she was forgetting that were like, one of the things that I remember him telling me about was that their honeymoon was, he was talking to her and he said, oh, it's a moment on their honeymoon that they used to frequently sort of go back to and talk about just, in the course of normal talking. And he said, oh, yeah, started to talk about this thing that happened on the honeymoon, and there was a vague look on her face, and she said, I can't remember that. And he told me he felt like this almost just a feeling of
the pin dropped.
My God, what's going on? That's so yeah. So we came up, we moved up here, and my sisters stayed down in Sydney, and I moved up to Gympie with Mum and Dad, and then we nursed her at home. She passed away on the 15th of February in 1989.
Yep.
And yeah, life went on from there.
And when did you meet your beautiful wife, Sharon?
About 6 months after that.
Yep.
Yeah, I was 17.
Wow.
Yeah.
She was older than you, isn't she?
She
We're
is.
bloody, she went like that. I mean, hey, what? Don't say that. But she was a bit of a cradle snatcher in this instance, wasn't she?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Just she's Sharon's 2 years older than me. But for a couple of months.
So she's about, what, 41,
so I'm
42?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But so yeah, I'm born in June and she's born in March. So from March to June, she's actually 3 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
And I make merry hell with that.
Yeah, I bet.
It's all in good fun. But she is the sensible one in the relationship. So
really?
No, she is.
And how did you two meet?
We met at the pub.
Mm.
Yeah, I remember I was at the Royal Hotel down the bottom, and with some friends, and we ended up going up to the Tattersall, not the Tattersalls, up to the Freemasons, and I was with a friend there, and Sharon came up and asked me if I'd dance with her.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Back then, what would it have been? I think it was Fine Young Cannibals. That sort of vintage. Drive Me Crazy. And what else would have been? Oh, crikey, yeah.
So did you know each other before that at all?
No, never met.
Had you seen each other at all?
She, at the gym. She used to do aerobics, and she saw me. Probably because I was that mong up the back that couldn't do the moves, and like I stood out a bit. So I don't know whether she was impressed by me or she noticed me for the difficulties that I was having doing the class. But so I didn't know her. She asked me to dance. We danced.
She danced, you were there just
people flying everywhere around us. Up in the Freemasons, there was like a disco out the back there, back in the old days. We went for a coffee after that, because she had a car and I didn't have a license. And we went out to, back then you used to go out to somewhere like Matilda, because nothing, once the pub shut down, everything was shut. So the only thing you could do was go out to the 24-hour servo out on the highway. And we went out there and had a coffee. She had a friend with her. And and then they dropped me off. And I thought, oh yeah, she's a nice girl. And then she knew the friend that I was with, and she got onto him and got my number, and
right.
And then we've been together ever since.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then how soon did children come along?
Well, so we got married in 2000. We got married in 1993, and Reese, my oldest boy, was 96.
Yep.
So I was 21 when we got married.
Yep.
So and then
about 24 when Reese came along.
23, and then
Yep.
and then we had the 3, we got about raising a family together. And Sharon's dad died in 2003. Cyril, he was an absolute great man. I was very lucky to have him as a father-in-law. And we bought the house next door when he passed away, and the kids were only little. And so we lived next door to Sharon's mum, and we raised the kids there. And it was a great place to raise a family. And having grandma next door, Granny, who only passed away a couple of years ago herself, was great for the kids. And I ended up.
Did she babysit the kids a fair bit?
Yeah. She ended up as the lollipop lady up at the Chatsworth School, because the kids went to the Chatsworth School just across the road.
So she'd watch them go to school.
Yeah. And Granny was on the stop go sign. And so she'd look after them, but I'd look after them too. So because I was a policeman, I used to get, if I was working an afternoon shift, it'd start at 2 or 4 o'clock, or even sometimes 6 o'clock in the evening. That'd give me time to look after the kids before they went to school. So Eve particularly, we knocked around my daughter. We knocked around a lot together when she was little. So Sharon would be working during the day, and I'd be working the evening. So
I was going to touch on that. This whole entire time with the kids, you're a police officer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what inspired you to become a police officer? And, how long were you doing it for before you got into politics?
Yeah. So it was with what had happened in my upbringing with Mum. It cut because we nursed Mum, and she passed away at home with us. My father and I nursing her, that was put a full stop on my high school education at the time. So the last year I finished was grade 9. So I then had to, I was working at Laminex out on the way to Tin Can Bay, and labouring and doing whatever I could for quite some time. But I had to get an education to get a more substantial career, so I had to go and study. So I did do a diploma in justice, and it was at that time that I really had to decide what I wanted to do. And helping people was something I like doing. It's something that I feel is fulfilling for me. And I was fit. I was strong. I thought I was a good fit for the job.
You are fit and strong still.
I wasn't a few years ago. You remember me a few years ago. Politics got the better of me back then.
It did.
So anyway, it took me a while to get in. I think it took me 2 attempts to get into the police, but I was absolutely focused on getting into it, and I did. And it was tough, but it was a huge developmental experience. You can't not go into a job like that. And I know, Lily in nursing will have something similar, where she's going to be exposed to a whole bunch of stuff throughout the different areas.
Has been already. Yeah.
And dealing with that when you're new and young has got its challenges. And then dealing with it when you've been doing it for a long time has its challenges too, because it's almost.
Do you think you become cynical after time?
You become a bit hard.
Okay.
I don't know about cynical, but in some of these jobs, you have to harden yourself, and in that process of hardening yourself, sometimes you lose connection with how you're going. And I would imagine nursing, you'd need to be very careful because it catches you. I've spoken very openly about my mental health challenges as a policeman, and it does catch you off guard, because everyone sort of feels like they're a little bit psychologically invincible, or if you haven't experienced until you're not.
Yeah.
So as you get a bit older, you might think you're getting stronger, but you've just got to be careful that you're not assessing yourself and just checking where you are as well. So policing, it's an extraordinary job. It's an extraordinary job. You can be 1 minute, you can be at a counter talking to someone who's lost their handbag, and a couple of hours later you can be talking to someone telling them that their child's been killed. And then a couple of hours later after that you can be back taking another lost property thing. It's
the emotional toll.
Yeah.
And you became
you've got to be able to deal
over
with it.
time.
Yeah.
Do you think you kind of put into the deep end at the beginning?
I put myself into the deep end at the beginning. Yeah.
What year did you start policing?
So 99, I went in
Yep.
to the academy, and then left in 16 when I was elected.
Yep.
So 16 years as a police officer.
Did the nature of the crimes change over that period?
The nature of the jobs that I did.
Okay.
And that's another thing.
Yep.
Probably similar to nursing. There's a bit of variety in the areas that you can work. And policing is more variety than most. So everyone starts off in general duties. And so you're just doing very much the basic, straightforward police work. When I was early in that phase of my career, I did a course for accident investigation. So it was back then, it was called the Traffic Investigation Squad, or Traffic Accident Investigation Squad. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it was the task course, and it was taught you how to investigate serious accidents. And then once you were qualified with that, you had that qualification, there were certain things that you could do that other people couldn't do. And that was when the whole highway coming into Gympie was really, really bad. And it wasn't just the highway. There were a lot of fatalities. And I ended up for some time, I was one of the only people around that could investigate the fatals. So it became such a big part of what I did. It was almost, for a little while there, it was almost all I did.
Which is incredibly heavy to
Mate,
take that
it is.
home with you once you've been through that.
Yeah.
Did that would have taken a toll on you at points?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely did. I ended up having to take some time off the job after a few years, and in the regions, in the country, I think I've never policed in the city, but you're confronted with situations where you know the people in the fatals, so the young fella that's died, or the old person that's passed away and been killed in an accident.
And it's your job to assess it.
Yeah, and you've got to do.
And you've got to do that professionally.
Absolutely, and it's. So that it's tough, but this is every day. Police, fireys, nurses, ambos, they're doing this every day. That's just the nature of the business. And
there's a great deal of respect for those occupations in the community.
Yeah.
I think to an extent lesser, unfortunately, for police.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it's fair, but it does exist in the community. Not a hate of police, but just a general disliking of them.
There is
generally.
That. I mean, and just, sometimes good people, you walk down the street in uniform, and a mum or a dad might be with their kids, and they go, "You better be careful, a policeman will get you." It's like, oh,
yeah, you're there to help.
I'm here to help. If he goes missing, or your little girl goes missing, you don't want them hiding from the cops.
They can view you as an authoritarian figure rather than a figure of.
I used to jokingly think they should be saying, there's a bikie over there, he'll get you, because that's the real danger.
Yeah.
There's an OMCG. But look, the vast majority of people respect and appreciate what police do, and the ones who don't. So
may have had a bad experience.
May have had a bad experience.
Somebody's had a bad experience.
Well, they might be a crook.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a giveaway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But look, it's amazing just dealing with it all. And I worked in traffic branch for some time, and, I reckon in terms of my communication skills, traffic branch was probably one of the most important parts of my learning, because it's volume. and it's everyone. You could pull over somebody who is a criminal and is wanted or is on parole, or you're dealing with somebody who it could be challenging in that regard. Vast majority of people, just great people that have a really happy engagement. You could pull over someone, of the standing of a high court judge or a senior politician or not, somebody, and you've got to be able to speak to them all
in the same manner.
In the same manner. Professionally.
Deal with it.
Yeah.
So it teaches you how to be a people person. If you're not already one, you become one.
Yeah, well, you do. Yeah. You do. And, people, I don't know, traffic cops don't, it's not the most, it's not the job that everyone wants to have, but I loved it. I was a motorbike cop for a while, and as you know, I'm a fanatical motorbike rider. But, I loved it. And look, in retrospect, I think I probably learnt more as a traffic police officer. You do all sorts of other jobs as well. But now in politics and as a local member, which is what I really like to focus on and be, I've got to help people with a vast array of issues. The spectrum of socioeconomic circumstances is vastly different, in Wide Bay. You've got people who are very challenged, and then you've got people who are doing okay, but they can all have issues that I need to help them with. And I do reflect and think sometimes that time in traffic branch helped me have that ability to talk to everyone and made me feel comfortable and hone that skill. So yeah, it was a big decision for me to get out of policing because I liked it, and it was, like I said before, it took me a fair bit to get in there. It was something I was absolutely it's what I wanted to do. So when Warren Truss was the person who came and asked me if I'd be interested in running, it was a big decision. It wasn't something that I, jumped straight at. I didn't really think about it.
So what genuinely, before we get into you actually becoming an MP, political world, life, what inspired you to actually join a party?
Well, when I was doing the fatal accident investigation, I believe it or not, that was sort of what sparked my interest in politics. So I came from a family that were pretty politically aware. My father's side were more on the Labor side, and my mum's side were very much on the Conservative side. Mum was a member of the Liberal Party in New South Wales, and when I met Sharon, her family were National Party supporters, and so when I got a bit stressed from doing the accident investigations, I started to look for how we could fix things, at a broader. I was mopping up all of the mess. How do we stop it from happening in the first place? And infrastructure and road building, and
your mindset changed. You started analysing things in a different way, and you're going, how can I actually get in there and fix it?
Yeah. And so that was sort of where the journey began.
So what year did you actually sign up to?
2005 or 2000,
National Party, it would have been
2005 or 2006.
Yep.
And also the Traveston Dam had become a big issue, and so the politics in the area was probably a bit heightened at the time. We'd gone through. Gympie wasn't held by the National Party or the LNP, because obviously this was pre-merger of the LNP in Queensland. It was held by an independent former One Nation person, and then with all of the political the heightened political atmosphere, I was engaged and became active. And I've always, a lot of people run party politics into the ground. But I think, and our system of government into the ground. But we've got a very, very good system of government. I think it was Winston Churchill that it's attributed to, saying that democracy is the worst form of government in the world, apart from all the others we've tried.
Yep.
And by it's not perfect, and at times it's quite ugly, but it's good. It is good. And part of that is a two-party system, and having two organised major parties or a government and a well-organised opposition is a fundamental part of our system, and I think it's a good one. And I leant towards joining a party, also coming from families that were politically party sort of oriented. There's a place for independents. Do you want too many of them? That's up for debate.
Depends on your perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think independents bring into the system some element of accountability, in that if you say you've got a minority government, you're relying on, say, this is back when Julia Gillard was Prime Minister, they were relying on, was it Rob Oakeshott and
Tony Windsor, Bob Catter,
and Andrew Wilkie?
And Wilkie, yeah.
And they were relying on them, and they had to get their support they gave the government support, but they also, I guess, had demands that had to be met.
Yeah.
Yeah, and policy ideas which they preferred over what the government's stance may have been.
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess playing devil's advocate, that can actually be a very good thing in our system.
If they're good people.
Well, that's it, because if they're not good people, it could be a detrimental thing.
Absolutely. And, I'm not saying they're not good people, that's for sure. But in principle, what do they stand for?
There's a lot of control.
So party politics cops a flogging because people believe you have to toe the party line, and you're never going to do what you want, and you'll always do what the party wants. And
you prove that wrong, which is something I want to touch on soon. But you prove that wrong.
So I think there's more power in a party member that's not bound by cabinet, who is prepared to step outside and say, righto, no. Because for a number of reasons, the party doesn't want that to happen, but it's not something that should happen just for no reason at all, but it's a pretty powerful position to be in if you're prepared to do it. And if you're only really interested in being a local member, and my sort of politics, they don't disendorse you. There's consequences to everything that you do, and if you're doing something that the members of your party don't like, you might end up being disendorsed. But it's not an automatic disendorsement like it is in other parties. So crossing the floor, for instance, I crossed the floor during the COVID period, and prior to that, I've done things that have not been in line with what the party's position was at the time that I've thought were the right thing to do, and I've changed things. I've had those independent. There have been independents in the Parliament at the time, and they couldn't have done what I did. Around the royal commissions and things like that I was part of bringing on. So there's independents. They're a part of our democracy. They're a good thing. They do keep parties in check. For parties have got to look at why people are not voting for them as well, if they're not. But at the end of the day, I also think of it a little bit like our two-party system's a little bit like the state of origin. How many people do you want just go and run up and down choosing wherever they score? It's like, there's a reason we get great footy, and that's because there's two teams that are well trained and fighting for a cause, and the winner is footy. but in this case, the winner is democracy.
Mm.
Transparency is everything. Transparency is everything when it comes to your decisions in politics and in government. But having two well organised entities that are keeping each other honest, I think, is a good thing.
So let's backpedal a little bit.
Yep.
What actually got you to come over the line and go, you know what, I'll put my hand up to be a nominee, to be the candidate, to run for the position of federal member for Wide Bay? What really was like the driving factor behind all of that?
There were a number of things. Family had to want me to do it and agree, and I had that. Sharon was encouraging and wanted me to do it. I also spoke to a lot of friends at the time, and I'd helped others through that journey. So I'd managed, by this stage, I'd become the vice president of the LNP in Queensland, and I was there because I had a track record of achievement within the party, helping people and campaigns. So I had quite a few people who I'd helped that were ringing me as well, saying, "Righto, fella, now it's your turn. You got to step up." And I was going, "Oh no!"
But you had support behind you.
I did,
which is probably the most important part.
Yeah.
Rather than just going in there and being a maverick, you actually had people wanting you to be there.
Yeah, people knew what I was about and who I was, and they were the ones that got in behind me. And but going from a country cop to a member of the parliament is a big jump, particularly when it's not been something that you've. And it's hard to. I don't want people to think that that I'm not supposed to be there, but it wasn't something that I'd aspired to.
Which I think is important. Genuinely, in our political system these days, a lot of the politicians, they always wanted to be there, and they put themselves on the trajectory to be there by being in the office of a political figure, or being in party politics from the second they became an adult or sooner. They've been in that system the whole time without that actual real life experience of being a police officer, running a small business, being an essential worker of any kind. Or a worker of any kind, except for outside of the political system.
Yeah, that's.
And I think it's actually really not like you shouldn't. Yeah, that's something to be very proud of.
Yeah,
is that you went in there, you were a police officer for a long time.
Yeah,
you knew people.
Yeah,
and people knew you.
Yeah,
and you were honest and humble the whole way.
Yeah, well,
not to that sounds a bit like I'm brown nosing, but it's the truth. Like that's important.
It is
to me.
It is, yeah. And you need, those people that have had a life of politics that have gone from, that are staffers or have been engaged. There's a place for a few of those people too. We just don't want too many of them. There is a place. There's a place. The Parliament should represent our community. And I think my party does. I think it does. Like there's and the other side too. But reflecting on my side, there's a lot of different. Like we've got farmers in the party that have spent a lifetime working on the land. We've got people like me, police officers. There's academics. There's a whole variety of people that are bringing a different life experience.
Any tradies at all?
Yeah, there's a couple of tradies. Yeah, my good mate to the south of us, Andrew Wallace, is a builder. Keith to the north, he was an electrical engineer and a sparky. So lots of different people and.
Broad church.
A lot of people born high vis. So it's good. Yeah, they're a good bunch of people. It's like any workplace. There's people you get on with and people you get on with less.
Luckily, in my workplace, it's just Dad and I. And some days we get on really well, and some days we just don't. But at least we can say whatever we like to one another. There's no repercussions whatsoever.
And you got a big workplace,
yeah.
So you can go over to
just
that
750 acres, so we can pretty spacey. We can get far away from each other if we have to.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, if we have an argument while we're milking cows, I'll just leave the pit, or he will, and we'll go to do something else.
Yeah,
and let it just de-escalate that way.
Yeah,
There's no reports put into anybody saying, "Oh, well, he called me this, this, and this, and therefore I want this, that." Claim something.
Does he pull rank?
Sorry,
does he pull rank? Like I'm your father.
Yeah, well, we are a partnership.
Yeah,
genuine. Like we're actually our business is a partnership.
Yeah.
But no, Dad is.
He plays the dad card.
Well, he's my dad. He's authority.
Yeah,
you know. And sometimes we do things my way, but fairly rarely.
Yeah.
It's usually how he thinks it should be. And that's fair enough. He's got the experience.
Yeah. I've had a good chat to your old man recently.
Yeah.
I really like him.
Yeah.
He's a good guy, and I reckon he's done a good job raising you and your family and your you know. But it's hard sometimes. It's not hard. It's an interesting challenge when your kids grow up and you're dealing with them as adults. I couldn't imagine. I haven't worked with my kids, but that'd be another challenge again. I shouldn't call it a challenge. It's just
different.
Yeah, like you grow together, and it's it's not always easy. It's like marriage. Sometimes it's not always easy, and you have to work on it. And sometimes things are fantastic, and other times they're really, really not fantastic.
As long as you set boundaries.
Yeah.
Or they're, not necessarily verbalize it and have this is what we must do, but just to understand each other.
Yeah.
And have boundaries and know each other well enough that you know not to cross boundaries.
Yeah.
Basically creates a successful workplace.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
When you're pushing someone's button, maybe you should stop pushing it.
Yeah.
Basically kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we're pretty good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'd go working with my boys. Obviously, I love my boys.
I think you'd enjoy it a hell of a lot more than what you do enjoy working with a handful of the people you may do now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm sure your boys are bloody spotless. They're good kids.
Oh, great.
You know what I mean?
Fantastic.
Whereas in your dealings at times, you're dealing with people who aren't so squeaky clean.
Yeah. I think my daughter, I think I could work with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be better.
I think anybody could work with her.
Yeah. But she's a bit of a whip cracker, and I respect that with her. So
do you think that influence kind of with your kids and your family and all that has played a big part in how you now act as an MP? Do you kind of try and have a closer connection with people one-on-one now through your experience of being a father? And then I guess through being
parenthood does change you. I mean, all of a sudden, we were talking earlier about what I was telling you about, that experience of when you first hold that baby for the first time, particularly if it's something that you've really wanted. And for me, it was just incredible. My life has revolved around my kids, and that's an integral part of who I am. And I do, family can take different forms to the traditional family. That's a reality.
Yeah, not every family is a nuclear family.
No, that's right. Yeah. But a family, a grouping of people who love and protect each other beyond everything else, above everything else. And the welfare of that group is everything to them. That's what the cornerstone of society. That's us. That's what we are as human beings. And then community outside of that, it's very important. But family is everything, and it has been since I met Sharon at the Freemasons, and we went on from there.
So now I want to touch on, you left the National Party room.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that whole thing, eh? Yeah. So you left the National Party room February 10th, 2020?
Yeah.
I guess, you don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of everything. That's understandable. But I guess, in a nutshell, what brought you to that decision and what were the ramifications for it?
Yeah, that in terms of my parliamentary life, that was the most difficult time in my parliamentary life by a significant stretch, because I'd done a fair few things. I was one of the people that brought on the Royal Commission into the banks and the financial services sector, and
leaving that party room helped you do.
Well, I'd done that when I was in that party.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
So some when I was in the party room, a couple of things I did when I was outside of the party room. So I'd done challenging things, but nothing challenged me more than that period. And, I loved the National Party. I'd really, I loved what they stand for. I love what they stand for. That's where I came from. I joined the National Party, and I didn't lose my faith in the party and what it stood for. There was a breakdown at that team level, at the parliamentary level, that there was an impasse that I couldn't solve, and I felt ethically the only choice for me was to step outside of that group. I still sat with the coalition, but I just didn't sit with that group. And like I say, it was very challenging, hugely challenging personally. People didn't know what was going on in the background, so they looked at me as, is this guy some sort of, we've
troublemaker.
We've invested in helping this guy. What's he doing? So I had to explain that in that confidential sort of party context. And I had the backing of the people, my supporters, and the people in the party. Obviously, I was then pre-selected after that, and when I felt like things had changed within the party, I went back into it. But it's not something you like. Like I say, it was extraordinarily difficult. The people that were involved with those things at the time are good people. They're good people. But there were certain things that were happening that I just couldn't agree with. And for me to stay there was just untenable for me. But like I say, wow, that was really stressful.
You have no regret for it whatsoever?
No. I look back and obviously you wish that certain things were different. I wish it never happened.
Yep.
But taking all of the circumstances and everything into account at the time, I did the right thing. I did what I thought was right. I would be harder on myself if I didn't do what I thought was the right thing to do. If I just shut up and.
But it's something you would do again if you were in that set of circumstances.
Yeah, if I hope it doesn't happen, and I don't.
But I mean, I know. But I mean, like, say you transport it back in time to that day again, you would do it again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It wasn't something that I just, there were a lot of factors.
Yes.
There were a lot of factors, and at the time, that was, for me, that was the right thing to do, and I try, and particularly in public life, you're there to do the right thing, like
regardless of criticism.
Regardless, and people put a lot of trust in you, and sometimes being the one who steps up and says no is not, a lot of the time it's very difficult, but that's what people deserve when they support you, and that's what I felt I did at that time. But very difficult. But then again, like it's like everything in life, not difficult when you think about the things that I was doing beforehand. Difficult personally. It was very difficult in a political context, and personally it was difficult. But you can always just look at people around you, or people you've seen, or people, my experience that I've had to speak to and give them the worst kind of news, and like, hey, this is not difficult.
Well, I guess, you're being humble now, because, I mean, truthfully, there are always people who have it worse off than you. There will always be somebody worse off. there'll always be somebody who's better off.
Yeah,
You know, it's just everyone's life is so individual.
yeah,
And like you were saying before, speaking walking 1,000 miles in somebody else's shoes, until you do that, you can't really understand what's going on in other people's lives.
yeah.
Yeah, and so what you did was quite difficult for you, and
Yeah.
not something which you should be going, oh, but they've done this and they've done that, so really it's not that big a deal. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, it was. And
Yeah.
I you know, yeah. There's a lot of, you know, you feel like I felt like I had people supporting me who didn't understand at the time,
And did that make
it
you
was-
feel guilty? Did you feel like you were doing the wrong thing at times by others?
I've always felt like I was doing it for the right reason, but obviously I knew that people would
Worried
not
about the
understand.
perception.
Yeah, worried about people that had that I valued greatly, thinking that I, you know, getting the wrong idea about it. So there were a lot of conversations that went on for me to explain my position at the time. And look, if you don't, you know,
You can't get anywhere without stepping on a few toes, can you?
Yeah, that's often the case.
Yeah.
That's often the case. You know, am I glad that happened? No, I'm not glad that happened. Would I do it again under the exact same circumstances? I would say yes, because I would have been faced with the same circumstances. You know, do I wish it was different? Yeah, I do wish it was different. Would I do it again if I was faced with a situation where I thought that taking a particular course of action was the right thing to do and would potentially change something bad, or speaking up on an issue and just instead of just remaining silent about it? I'll do it. I'll do it. That's that's what I've been put there to do. So a lot of people have just turned a blind eye, and I'm not talking about my circumstances when I say this, but there are a lot of people who in history have turned a blind eye to things that they shouldn't have. And
Because it was easier?
Yeah, absolutely. Because they wouldn't have everyone looking
They're
at
trying
them.
to please everybody all of the time.
Yeah,
And really you can't. You can pick, isn't it the saying, you can please some of the people some of the time?
yeah.
You can please you can please all the people some of the time, but you can't. No, I'm getting that wrong again. You can please some of the people all of the time, but you can't please all of the people some of the time. Is there a saying like that?
Yeah, there is.
Am I making
I
it
think
up?
you might have nailed it in that last one.
Yeah,
but now you're starting to
I'm
confuse
confusing
me.
myself, but there's a saying,
Yeah.
and what I'm trying to say is that you'll never have everybody on board.
You'll never have everybody on board.
Everybody, and I think some people think
Yeah.
that that's possible.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah.
If you want to try and please everybody, you are going to fall into a ditch.
Yep.
Because you'll land on your face, because you might please everybody for a little bit.
Yeah.
And there'll be these high expectations of you being perfect, and you're the Messiah, and you're fixing everything, and you're great until you make a wrong decision.
Yeah.
And then everyone goes, oh, because their expectations of you are so
Expectations
high.
high.
And then when you can't meet them anymore, they go, oh, they're not that good.
Yeah.
They're human like me. Oh, I don't like them anymore.
And the other thing about the politics and party politics, and I think it extends into every area of parliamentary politics. It is very team oriented, and we talked about that. I like there's aspects that I think are very valuable to our democracy, but when you go against the team, it's like very difficult. It is. It is difficult. So, and you're not going to please. You're certainly not going to please.
But now it's all water under the bridge. Pretty well.
Yeah. Look. I'm back in the party room, and I have good relationships with people. You know, politics is and parliamentary dealings are about dealing with what's in front of you at the time. I will always do what I think is best for Wide Bay and Australia. And I think generally speaking, you know, everyone in there has got a similar idea in terms of their area and looking after their nation. So we sort of do put things aside to work on the positive and the betterment of the nation and our areas. So if you go in there feeling aggrieved about every little argument or disagreement or something you didn't get wrong, you're just going to be a very bitter person very quickly. We're there to do a job for our people, and yeah, we do that. We do that. There's been leadership changes in the Nats with Michael and Barnaby and now David, and you've got to work with everyone if you can, and you've got to try your hardest to do that. And yeah, I think David's doing a good job. I think we've had a lot of big issues in opposition. We had the Voice, which was something the Nationals came out on pretty early and was not an easy issue to deal with. There's a lot of things around renewable energy that are affecting the regional people that we're looking very closely at and scrutinising and campaigning and trying to get the right outcomes. They're big decisions and big discussions to have, and I think David's doing a good job in relation to that.
Hello, sorry to end this so abruptly. We decided to make this a 2-part interview, make it 2 episodes, simply because there is so much information and so much knowledge that we couldn't really fit it all into one episode. We didn't want to bombard you with too much. And it's so fascinating and so interesting speaking with Llew. So we hope that you can be a little bit patient and wait for the next episode next week, where we will be joined by Llew O'Brien once again. Thank you very much.